Hey, folks, I'm very excited to have back on the show none other than the preaching extraordinaire, pastor, incredible singer, musician, Woody Robinson. How you doing, Woody?
Hey, Brant, how you doing today? So happy to be back with you. I want to know. I have a question for you today, though.
Okay.
I want to know, what did you do that you got Ted Nugent to move to Texas? I mean, it's got to be you. I mean, because until he met you,
man.
After he met Brant, he's like, "Well, I've got to move to Texas because Brant's there."
Man, you know, he's a true patriot, and you got to go
influence
to the home of the free, the land of the brave, or land of the free and the home of the brave. And you know, Uncle Ted. Actually, Woody, he was already in Texas.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Don't tell anyone any different. Let them think it's your influence. Don't.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I talked him into it. I said, Texas needs you, my friend. And, yeah. He said, "Hey, let's wango tango. Let's get down there." So
I'm not sure that's what he said.
Well, man, actually, you may actually meet him. Who knows, man? But yeah, Uncle Ted's a great man, and of course, Shemaine is incredible as well. You know, she has shows out there. You're going to see some of them, folks. You know, Shemaine Nugent, wildly
That'll
well, work. And man, I'll tell you what, she's a firecracker. She's a Jesus girl. Hey. And of course, you know, you can't be married to Ted Nugent for 33 years and not have.
You're going to need Jesus.
Not have a lot of fire to you and fearlessness. But you know, Woody, I tell you what, man, there's so many things going on in the world.
There are.
And of course, you and I are alumni going to Egypt.
We are.
In some places where angels fear to tread, not God's angels, that is.
That's why I sent you and me, because we're not afraid to tread.
That's right. We're not, man. And you're not afraid to drum.
No,
in a foreign land and sing. And my gosh, man, we had a lot of fun singing and playing for people in the persecuted church there in Egypt. And I tell you what, a lot of great things happen and a lot of freedom around the world. A lot of people don't know what's happening around the world if they're getting all their news from the mainstream media. But I tell you what, folks, there's a whole world out there that is coming to freedom in many, many ways. You know, I mean, China is experiencing a revival. Egypt is experiencing a revival, seeing Jesus, dreaming of Jesus, meeting Jesus, right. You know, and of course, so many people, hundreds of thousands of protesters from France, Germany, UK, and more protesting this globalist Luciferian reset and the mandates and, well, north of the border, you know,
Brant, he's always had a plan.
Yeah.
He's always got a plan to take over.
Yeah.
He always does that. And that shouldn't surprise anybody. Right. It shouldn't catch anyone off guard when there is a plan to take over.
Right.
But even Jesus told us that.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus said, look, in the world, while you exist here on this planet, there will be tribulation. There'll be wars. There'll be rumors of wars. There'll always be something going on
too. Yeah.
He said, but with that, remember, I have overcome the world.
That's right.
I've overcome whatever those plans are. Doesn't mean it won't affect us. Right. It doesn't mean that we won't have to make adjustments. We probably will from time to time.
Right.
We don't change our character and our integrity.
Right.
We don't do that. But Jesus said, look, you're always going to see plans. There's always, it amazes me. I remember in the late 70s, there was, there was another plan. And then the 80s, there came a plan. And then the 50s, there was a plan. There's always a plan to take over.
Right.
But Jesus also has a plan that in spite of government's plans, mm-hmm. Jesus is always moving through open doors into people's hearts.
Right.
People's hearts are always open. And sometimes it takes a bad situation for people to step back and say, wait a minute, what is the one thing I can always count on? Yeah. What is the one thing that's immovable and unshakable?
Preach it, brother. Come on.
And that, sir, is when Jesus said that he's overcome the world. So my faith isn't in the world. My faith isn't in
Right.
the programming. My faith isn't in science. My faith is in the creator and the redeemer and the savior and the victorious, overcoming, resurrected King of Kings.
That's right.
That's who my faith is in.
That's right.
And that's why when it says, regardless of what's going on, but I have overcome the world. At the end of every sentence, it's but Jesus has overcome it.
Right.
And even and it's amazing to me on how many different levels people are grasping for a new understanding. Is that, wait a minute, I passed off this Jesus as just an old story, but maybe it's authentic. Maybe it's genuine. Maybe I can't really get around it. Maybe maybe it's deeper than what I know.
Right.
Maybe the person of Jesus is deeper than what I understood. And that's really what's happening, is that trouble makes people open up and say, what's the most important thing about me? What's the most important thing in my family? What
do I know?
What's unshakable?
Right. There you go.
What is actually unchangeable?
Unshakable, unchangeable, unbreakable.
That's what, and it's not just the message of Jesus, it's who he is.
Yeah.
And then we're called, we are designed to be his image in the earth.
And his agents on the earth, man.
Right. Because he said, look, if for those who have dedicated their life to me, I'm giving you the power to become the sons of God. Right. You become the image of me in the earth wherever you go. So whether we were in Egypt, guess what we were singing? We're singing about him.
Right.
If we sing it in a church in America, we're going to sing about him.
Right.
Because that's who you and I are.
Well, we're angels.
I want to tell one thing to the viewers, and because a lot of the viewers respect you, but they don't know you as well as I do. And because you are one of the most genuine, authentic people I have met in my life. Wow. Because you're the same person right there behind the mic that you are sitting next to me in an airport in Cairo.
Wow.
You're the same guy. Because I can tell everybody that's watching, look, Brant's not doing a show. Brant is opening his heart and opening his life. And that's why people like to watch what you bring to the table, because you're actually opening up your heart. You don't just, I've met people and they are plastic 1 minute, and when the lights come on, they put on a persona. And then when the lights go off, they're another different person. But the one thing that people are drawn to is that Brant is authentic and genuine.
Wow, Woody. Well, brother,
I appreciate you, my brother. I want you to know that.
I believe the same, and I know the same about you. Brother, we're all in the same boat. We're all saved by grace. I can see people and say, you're no better than me. I'm no better than you. We're in the same level, man. There's that saying that the ground is level at the foot of the cross. It means so much that you'd say that. Over in Egypt, brother, you really, really encouraged me and everybody.
Well, you were encouraging me too. That's the thing that people don't understand, is that it's not that one person. It's reciprocal.
Right.
Jesus. That's why Jesus never even sent the disciples out in by themselves. He said, no, go. Two of you go. Hey, keep walking there, lady. Nothing to see here. Keep moving.
Yeah.
But Jesus would send them out in pairs, because we need each other to encourage each other.
Say that part again. Jesus would send them in pairs. 3, 2, 1.
Jesus would send them in pairs. Jesus would send them so they would not be by themselves. Because when a man becomes isolated, or when a woman becomes isolated, the enemy attacks them easier. And you feel overwhelmed.
Boy,
and sometimes you need somebody to say, hey, we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
Paul and Silas are thrown in prison. And so when they're in prison, they start singing praises to the Lord in prison. So no matter who you are, it matters who you identify with. It matters who you're with, because that person begins together. You'll draw each other to the best parts of you. Wow. I was talking to a pastor in Oklahoma City this weekend, and we were talking about how that there are different animals that are born in an egg. Birds are born in eggs,
Right.
and turtles are born in eggs, and alligators are born in eggs. And what they have to do is that everything they've known is in that egg.
Wow.
But there comes a point you got to break out of the egg. You got to break the shell. Too many people fight themselves more than they fight anything else. If they could break out of their insecurity, if they could break out of their fear, if they could break out of their anger, if they could break out of the bitterness, if they could break out of these things, they would start growing and maturing. But one thing he shared with me is that years ago, he used to raise, he and his wife would incubate and raise chickens. And he said, as they would be in the warmer, some of the chicks would break out sooner than some of the other ones, and some of the other ones would try, but it's like they couldn't break through. He said, but when he would watch the other chicks go around to the other eggs and peck at the egg from the outside while the other one was pecking from the inside and actually help it break out of its egg.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And I didn't either. I'm like, we are not intended to be loners. We're not intended to that. The worst image that any man can accept of himself is I'm a lone wolf.
Right.
Number one, you're not an animal. You're made in the image of God. You're not made in the image. No, I'm just being honest. You're not made to be in the image of a wolf. You're made to be in the image of God.
Wow.
You're not designed to be by yourself. Even God said, he said, it's not good that man's alone. It's not good for him to be alone. And believe me, in this society, we are not alone. There are people everywhere.
Right.
Sometimes I'm like, I need a moment for myself. But we're not supposed to be alone, because we're supposed to be helping each other chip out of that shell, chip out of the bitterness, chip out of the misery, chip out of the negative persona of like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to survive. That's what's going to happen.
That's good.
We're going to keep meeting. We're going to keep preaching. One thing that you've really helped me with is seeing the technology as power, not the technology as overwhelming.
Wow.
Because why shy away from it? Mm-hmm. Why not use it? Especially but that's you helping me get out of my mindsets. Sometimes we need somebody to say, hey, you can do this. It's not as hard as you think it is. Come on, let me show you how easy this is.
Right.
And sometimes we need somebody to help chip away at our shells, at our limitations, at our insecurities.
Well, when I met you, buddy, I never would have guessed that you had any shells to break out of.
That's between you and me. Don't be telling everybody my stuff now. Come on. Don't be telling everybody my stuff.
Well, what you're saying is fantastic, and it's true. Sometimes it's easier to go through life as a lone wolf if you've been hurt by people, or you maybe even been hurt in ministry or whatever, or burned. But you're right, man. The enemy's plan is to isolate and eliminate. A sniper doesn't fire into a crowd very often. He waits until you're isolated and eliminated. And that's how the enemy operates. That's how bad people will operate. They will isolate someone to try to eliminate someone. It's interesting that the enemy's tactics are always that. But you're encouraging me, man, that, we don't stand alone. And this is a time for people to realize that you're not alone. No, you don't have to walk alone. That's really good, buddy.
Now what do we do with the feeling of there's policies being made and they're outside of my control?
Right.
I have to understand that things happen that are outside of my control. I don't actually able to control them, but what can I control?
Right.
Well, I can control my own anxiety. I can control my own fear. Don't give in to the it's all over, throw your hands up routine, because that becomes a routine. That becomes a mindset. Get some people around you that say, look, we're going to keep on keeping on for the Lord. We're going to keep on being men and women of integrity. We're going to be men and women of character.
Right.
Because integrity and character always finds a place and always finds a new place to grow again. Wow. And some of us had to come out of our shells, because that, it's one thing I've noticed that was that was tried to mentally put on people. You need to quarantine. Stay away. And what that does, though, then that causes an isolation.
To be eliminated.
It causes an isolation. And just to say, I feel so separated. I feel overwhelmed. I feel no control. And then there becomes well, what's the use? And throw your hands up and you walk off.
Right.
And we do that if we're not careful on so many levels, rather than saying, wait a minute, I'm not alone.
Right.
You know what? We've got these things called cell phones. Reach out to people, text them, call them, stay connected. Don't be isolated. Don't. And when the enemy tries to make you feel isolated, text 15 people. Say, hey, call me today before the day's over. And then after 5 of them, I wish everybody quit calling me. Well, wait a minute. But see, what's happened is that there's been a mind shift because you had someone else help you get out of your shell.
Wow.
To get out of that
really
setting.
Good, man.
Yeah.
That's really good. You know,
I don't care if I'm the biggest fish in the pond, because I'm not a fish. I'm a gator. I'm an alligator.
I'm thrilled, Woody, that you are leveraging technology as well. Not only coming on the show with me, but also, with what you're doing coming up with your incredible messages. You're very, very gifted preacher and speaker, and people will be able to watch those online and on television. I'm so excited about that. But, you're encouraging me and you're encouraging people not to be isolated and be eliminated, for people to come out of their shell. I'd like to encourage another group of people, and that's people who are choosing not to walk in fear, who have a calling, if you will, or a desire of their heart to reach people and to love people. Woody, I'll never forget seeing the movie The Guardian, Kevin Costner and Ashton Kutcher, and they were training to be Coast Guards. Kevin Costner was a seasoned hero Coast Guard guy. And there were some tough instructors there that were encouraging these people to overcome their fears and in many ways coming out of their shells too, in boldness and learning new things, new challenges. And one of the scenes I'll never forget, Woody, is this hardened instructor kept giving a hard time to Ashton Kutcher, and there's an exercise where he's supposed to rescue this drowning victim, and the hard instructor is pulling him under the water, kept pulling him, and finally Ashton Kutcher just says stop, and boom, hits him right in the face so that he can get away, because he was going to pull him down.
Right.
And all the other fellow recruits are going, ooh, oh my gosh, right? And sure enough, the hard instructor gets out and shakes his hand and says, that's what you're supposed to do, because victims will often pull you under and drown with them if you're not careful. And Kevin Costner made this statement. He said, the only difference, he said this to Ashton, about the victim, the drowning victim, is the only difference between you and him is the attitude in which you enter the water. It's the same storm in this life, folks. It's the same hurricane. It's the same chaos, created chaos by Lucifer and his Luciferians, folks. But you know what?
But now watch this. So it mattered who it mattered who he was connected to. It mattered who he was listening to.
Right.
It mattered who he had to come to a point and said, I have to separate you. You're drowning me.
Right.
I have to separate. If you're being overwhelmed, if you're watching this and you're being overwhelmed by if you're being overwhelmed by the news and the information and things are changing, if you're being overwhelmed, get connected to some other people that aren't overwhelmed. Because the one thing you talked about, that in that particular movie, they're training to go in hurricanes. They're training to go into trouble.
And they're not a victim. They're a victor because of their chosen perspective, of their attitude. They're diving into this mess for the purpose of helping people. But someone else is a victim. And what decides that is fear, or the absence of fear. And so, man, we got to come out of our shell.
Who's the epitome of the absence of fear? Who's the epitome of the absence of fear?
That's Jesus. That's God, man.
In the world, you'll have tribulation that would cause most people fear, but be of good cheer. I'm going to help you overcome the tribulation.
Wow.
And I'm not talking, some people are like, well, the Stephen, tribulation. I don't care when it happens or if it doesn't happen. I'm going to be of good cheer. He's already overcome it. He's already overcome it.
Well, you're proactive and you're a true believer. There's a lot of people out there that they have an
I'm just a
attitude.
drummer.
Well, we'll just get taken out of this mess, so we're just going to sit back and not do anything. Folks, I've never had that attitude. I don't plan on
I'm never going, and I'm never going to have that attitude.
Yeah. So you know what? We're diving into this thing each and every day. I know that's what you do, Woody. You know, not only as the pastor of your church, but also as an evangelist and an encourager that goes around the entire body and speaks into the lives of people who are trying, some successful, some not, to leave this culture of fear and to have the right mind and to not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but to be transformed.
And here's the encouragement for them. Well, I feel like I'm trying, but I still feel like I'm struggling. Good. Keep struggling. Keep trying.
Right.
Keep staying connected. Keep going. Some things aren't overcome in one day. Some things aren't overcome in just one moment.
Right.
Some things take time. Most of life, everything takes time. I mean, a good meal takes time. A microwaved meal is easily accessed, but a good meal takes time.
That's true.
And so when something's developing, it'll take some time. And to change our mindsets, it'll take time. Change our attitude. It takes time. Changing those connections sometimes in the people that are encouraging us or not encouraged, that takes time. And we're in such an instantaneous society. Right. We struggle with anything that takes time anymore. But the reality is everything that's of the deepest quality takes time, and it has to develop.
It's like learning how to golf. I see those golfing bags back there, and
what? Right?
You're a champion golfer
here. I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, some people say, "Hey, are you a good golfer?" I say, "Well, I can get it through the ducky and through the windmill." Yeah, but it took time for you to learn how to be a good golfer. It took time, didn't it?
Okay, but what's the definition of a good golfer? Because I'm good at paying I'm good at paying the green fees, and I'm good at riding in the cart, and I'm good at having I'm good at having the. What's the definition? If we keep the definition pretty wide, if we, because I'm not going on the tour, that's not going to happen. Now, I would be a big hit on the tour.
Yeah,
I'd be very entertaining, but my golf skills they're not good. Are not good.
You know, there's even golf in the Bible. Paul went on to finish his course, and so
he really did. That's what it said. Yeah.
But this is so good, though, man. Is to not be isolated and eliminated. To understand that you know, children imitate their father. We're not made in the image of animals or a lone wolf, or made in the image of God. To come out of our shell and to help others come out of theirs, and to not live in fear, and to understand that you may not immediately overcome fear in one day. All good things take time. This is really good stuff right now, Woody. I mean, the world seems to be going crazy, but those of us who have determined from a young age to fight the good fight in this time that we are honored to be living in. You know, folks, I really think that sometimes we ask to be here at this time and place. What's going to be your story? What's going to be your history? Are you going to be in a dungeon away from the world, or are you going to be on the front line listening to the directives of the great counselor, of the King of Kings, and fearlessly moving forward together and moving forward in boldness to help others awaken and to perhaps break this fear barrier? I don't know about you.
I have a question. I have a question for the people that are watching, and especially those that say that they are followers of Jesus.
Right.
What did Jesus ask his disciples to go do?
Go into all the world.
He said, "Go."
Yeah.
Go into the problems. Go into the chaos. Go into a troubled atmosphere and be me in there, and that'll start changing it.
Right.
But I mean, our close friend, Dr. Ron Charles, does amazing work in other countries, even though he's been beaten and in prison, been shot, had his back broken. He keeps going, and he is the disciple of Jesus in a bad situation.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not trying to avoid the situation. I'm trying to be the disciple of Jesus in the situation.
Boy, does that change your paradigm, doesn't it? That goes from a half empty to a half full, instead of a half empty. Lack, fear, negative, anxiety, all the things. Nothing good comes out of fear or positive, man. Man, God's given me another day to live, and he's put me in this place in history. I'm going to do everything I can with every breath to fight. And those who know the Lord, who have that assurance of their faith, man, you can't kill a dead man. I'm Galatians 2:20, I've been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live,
right,
but Christ lives in me. The life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me.
Preach.
That's the fearless life. And that's what we're talking about. The last couple of minutes we have, Woody, I definitely want you to minister directly to people, even more so who are watching this online and over the airwaves. What's your word of encouragement to them to sum this up?
You held up that water bottle.
Yeah.
And water is sustaining and refreshing. And you were talking about half empty and half full.
Right.
And Jesus always supersedes our expectations. Jesus said, if you come unto me, he said, if you're thirsty and you come unto me, I'm going to actually put rivers of a living water that'll flow out of you.
Wow.
See, it's not, yes, there are times that we need other people to encourage us. We do. And that's authentic and that's genuine. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm just kind of need to pick me up. That's good. There has to be a point, though, that being a follower of Jesus, that when we walk into the room, we're there to encourage others. We're there to be the river. We're there to be the fountain. We're there to be refreshing. When people come into the room, they generally bring something with them. When you and I go into the room, we bring smiles. We're going to be refreshing. We're going to be encouraging. Right. Whether we're in an airport, whether we're in Egypt, whether we're here, that's what we do. But that's because there is a river that flows from Jesus and from the Holy Spirit. And because the Bible said that this he spoke of the Holy Spirit that had not been sent yet for all believers. But now it's saying, I want you to become that fountain, that place where the spirit of encouragement, faith, joy, healing comes out of you into every situation you go into.
Wow. That's a good word, brother. And that's the word on the street. That's the words of Jesus. Make connections with Woody Robinson at the bottom of your screen.
Thank you, sir.
You see the whole show. And brother, as always, can't wait till next time. Let's be fearless together. Love you, man.
Love you too, Brant.